Forward to the cloud.
Okay.
So welcome. As some of you know, I have been on a sabbatical for the last 4 months. So I've
Yeah.
been several times to Europe. I have done some visiting among family and friends. I've done some projects at home. But part of the truth is that I've actually also been ill most of the time. My
Oh,
first trip was to Vienna with the choir. And while I was there, toward the end of the trip, I got something called Campylobacter. I don't know if anybody knows what that is. I did not know what it was, but it's
no.
basically from eating um, something that has been contaminated with either raw fish, raw seafood, or raw chicken. And it's a kind of bacteria that basically destroys all of the bacteria in your system. So
Oh,
before I could get home, I came home at first and just thought I didn't feel well from traveling. I think we've all experienced that. But after a week of still not feeling good, I went to the doctor. They did a lot of tests. They figured out that's what I had. They gave me a very strong antibiotic. If that didn't work, I was going to be hospitalized for a week with an antibiotic. Lost 21 pounds in 2 weeks because what happens is you stop being able to digest anything, so everything just goes right through you. So the good news is the antibiotic did work. The bad news is it takes about another 2.5 to 3 months to really get your system back where it needs to be by eating probiotics and lots of yogurts and stuff like that. So I am just now about where I need to be. So that was a fun thing. The good thing is I did a lot of projects at home, and so I was close to places I needed to be close to. So, it was sort of an odd time. But at any rate, we are all
mhm.
subject to these things. So be careful what you eat out there. But the truth of the matter is, it was probably a salad. It wasn't the shrimp or the it was stuff that
Yeah.
had spilled on a salad and you eat a salad raw, and now you're in trouble. So at any rate,
Well,
but I am
I
down.
got a similar
Go ahead.
thing. This is incredible that landed me in the hospital here.
Yeah. So it
Yeah.
it can be pretty nasty. And you think of all places I've traveled to: Nicaragua, Africa. I've been a lot of different places in the world, Asia. Um, but this was Vienna, which is usually considered sort of,
Yeah.
good
Oh my
first world.
goodness.
So next time I'm just going to stick to the pastries. So we'll
Ah,
see. So at any rate, but it is good to be back. I am so excited that this year we're doing the Psalms because they're absolutely one of my favorite parts of the Bible. They are also, for me, a place that I use for devotions often in my prayer life. I hope that's something that you do as well. So each week, we're going to start with a psalm. Also, just to understand what we're doing, this class is going to be between 45 and 50 minutes because I often have things at 7 o'clock, just so you know. I mean, if we go a little bit longer, it's fine, a little bit shorter, but just so for your own planning, that's what we're going to try to do here. So the psalm that I'm going to start with tonight, just as a devotion, I'm going to read it, and I'm reading it out of the ELW because that's our hymnal, but I also will use my Bible as well because this is the one that we usually use to pray the Psalms, which we do every Sunday in church. I'm going to read Psalm 19, which is one of the Psalms we have for this week. Many of you also know that I'm a beekeeper, so you might know why this Psalm is so precious to me. So this is Psalm 19, and so I'll pause for a minute and then I'll read the Psalm for us. Psalm 19. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the sky proclaims its maker's handiwork. One day tells its tale to another, and one night imparts knowledge to another. Although they have no words or language, and their voices are not heard, their song has gone out into all lands, and their message to the ends of the world, where God has pitched a tent for the sun. It comes forth like a bridegroom out of his chamber. It rejoices like a champion to run its course. It goes forth from the uttermost edge of the heavens and runs about to the end of it again. Nothing is hidden from its burning heat. The teaching of the Lord is perfect and revives the soul. The testimony of the Lord is sure and gives wisdom to the simple. The statutes of the Lord are just and rejoice the heart. The commandment of the Lord is clear and gives light to the eyes. The fear of the Lord is clean and endures forever. The judgments of the Lord are true and righteous altogether. More to be desired are they than gold, more than much fine gold, sweeter far than honey in the comb. By them also is your servant enlightened, and in keeping them there is great reward. Who can detect one's own offenses? Cleanse me from my secret faults. Above all, keep your servant from presumptuous sins. Let them not get dominion over me. Then shall I be whole and sound, and innocent of a great offense. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. Beautiful, beautiful psalm. You can see why I like it, the reference to honey and bees there in the midst of it. Also, if you catch the very last verse, is also a prayer that sometimes pastors will use at the beginning of their sermons. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. I grew up and my pastor said that often as he began his sermon. So, absolutely beautiful psalm. I want to talk a little bit before we get into the text today. I know you've had Pastor Rachel Wren speak about the Psalter, and also Pastor Tim the last couple of weeks has led this class for me while I was still on sabbatical. And I just want to learn, what have you found out or learned about the Psalms so far? And then I want to talk about some things that are a delight to me with the Psalms. So first of all, I want to turn it over to you. What I know Kathy shared with us that Pastor Tim found some images. In fact, he shared with me those earlier today that he had created by AI, images of the Psalm.
I've got three more.
Pardon me?
I've got three more.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
All right.
Can you hear me? I'm so sorry.
We can hear you now.
My,
I think you got two.
oh, there we go.
I'm gonna mute that just so that.
I've got to disconnect. I'm so sorry.
There you are. We got you.
You did?
We got you now. Yes.
Hi.
Hi. How are you? Excellent. Good. And I turned off your other mute because now you're not echoing. So that's perfect. So okay, let's go back to my question. What did you learn so far about the Psalter? We sometimes call all the Psalms the Psalter. Sometimes it's also called psalmody. But what have you learned in your early study? Just some things that maybe pop up. Anything in particular? Hi, Craig.
Hey,
It
Pastor
says
John.
Jane, but that's Craig. That's Craig Mason there. So it says Jane.
She's right behind me. She'll be here in a second.
Okay.
I can say
right.
something that I learned that I thought was really amazing from Pastor Rachel, and that is that
Sure.
apparently the translation, when the Psalms were translated into Greek, the Septuagint, apparently
Yes.
there were a number of attributions to David that,
Yes.
most of the Psalms are attributed to David, and that they actually added some during the translation of the Septuagint, so that it kind of calls into question, the degree to which he was the author of so many Psalms.
Right. When the Septuagint was translated, I'm sure she might have told you that it's called Septuagint for 70. So they believe that 70 scholars translated the entire Hebrew Bible in 70 days. Okay, the Septuagint. 70 scholars, 70 days translated the entire Hebrew Bible. I think that's more probably fiction, but that's what they said. And because of that, whenever, and please know this, not just, but it's also true in English, whenever someone translates anything, I don't care if I'm talking with our custodian in Spanish and I know Spanish, you're making decisions about what that person is saying. And you're sculpting it in a way that sometimes meets your needs. Sometimes you're saying more than they said. And that's always, always true with translation. So when we look at translating the Bible, we know that in the Septuagint, they did many things. They translated, for instance, a famous one is, behold, a virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call him Emmanuel, from Isaiah, right? That is not actually what the Hebrew says. All right. It doesn't say a virgin. It says a young woman shall conceive and bear a son. But because of the virgin birth narratives of Jesus that were written in Greek, when they went to translate it, they translated that word young woman, Parthenos, into virgin. Do you see what happens? Now, I'm not saying one's right and one's wrong. I'm just saying translators, I don't care who does it, we do it, we put our little spin on it. And so serious students of Bible always go to the original languages. So we would not necessarily, you can study the Bible in Latin, the Jerome's Vulgate if you want. But most people would study Hebrew for the Old Testament and Greek for the New Testament because those are the original languages. And while we certainly look at the Septuagint in our translations and things, again, that's a further step removed from the original. So all translation always is putting a little bit of a spin on it. And that's something we have to be careful in biblical studies. And yes, by the time the Hebrew was translated into Greek, many people believe that David had sole authorship. Let me go a little bit step further than Pastor Wren did. Of course, she's the professor. But many people attributed David to all of the Psalms, which we know probably is not true. I don't know if she got into this, but modern scholarship suggests that maybe he wrote some of the Psalms, but more than likely his court gathered them together into a book that was used. Does that make sense? And in that sense, they were attributed to him. I don't know if she shared some of that. But again, scholarship bangs around with this stuff. We're not always sure, but we think David was sort of like, I don't know, the Dewey Decimal System or the card catalog for the library. He brought these things together. And maybe he also, because he was a musician himself, also composed some of them. But more likely, we think that the Psalter, as it is, the 150 Psalms, sort of represent a collection from across a wide range of history for the people of Israel. They prayed them when they were going up to Zion for prayer. They prayed them when they did not know where God would be. And in saying that also, I hope what you're hearing in me, I believe that almost every psalm has at least one emotion that's involved with it. Sometimes each psalm has 17 emotions in the midst of it, some of the longer ones, but almost all of them have some emotion. Like you heard in the psalm that I read, I hope you heard that this was an opportunity to praise God in the midst for all that God has done in the Psalm 19 that I just read. The other thing, and I don't know if Pastor Rachel Wren got into this all about, but this idea of biblical parallelism is very constant in the Psalter. If you look down at Psalm 19 that I just read, you'll see it. The heavens declare the glory of God, part one. Biblical parallelism, the echo, and the sky proclaims its maker's handiwork. The psalmist is not saying two things. The psalmist is saying the same thing twice. Okay? The Lord is my shepherd, we'll have next week. I shall not want. If God cares for you, your needs are met. That's not two different ideas. It's the same idea. Bless the Lord, O my soul. And what's next? And all that is within me, Psalm 103, bless God's holy name. Those are not two thoughts, they're one thought. Okay? If you look again at the psalm we have for today, verse 2, Psalm 19. One day tells its tale to another, one night imparts knowledge to another. Okay? You see, it's the same thing echoing. There's a lot of that in the Psalter. Okay? And by the way, it does occur other places in the Bible as well. And sort of a funny happenstance of this is when Matthew is reading the prophecy about Jesus coming into Jerusalem, he is reading from Isaiah, who talks about, and the Lord entered Jerusalem on a horse. On a horse, in the second verse is and on a mule or something like that. I forget what it is off the top of my head. But so Matthew has Jesus coming to Jerusalem on two animals. Well, that's not what the psalmist is saying. You know what I mean? It's not two things, it's one thing. But sometimes there's some misunderstanding about that. Okay? What else have you learned in the first couple of weeks? that you'd like to share?
Well,
Well,
one other thing I can
Kathy?
throw in there, I'm sorry.
Sure. Go ahead.
Pastor Wren did talk to us about the different types and categories of psalms, the laments and the praises and royal psalms and enthronement psalms and psalms of
Is she
ascent.
talking
and
all
then
about? Did she talk about imprecatory psalms?
imprecatory, yeah, the smite thy enemy kind of psalms.
Exactly. Oh Lord, I love thee so much. Kill my enemy. Right. Those are called imprecatory. So we're impugning the other person with it. Yes. And there's some in there. We don't tend to use that very much in worship, by the way, because they're sort of like, yay me, I love you, God. Please kill everyone I hate. So yes, those are difficult. We will cover them in our class this year. But yes, those are difficult psalms to deal with. Yes. I'm glad that she went over some of that. What's funny is in our old hymnal, uh, the Lutheran Book of Worship. Some of you know this if you've been Lutheran. In this hymnal, they left out 37 psalms. Why? Because they didn't want those words in the Bible. I mean, in the hymnal. I think it's good in the new hymnal that they included all 150. For good or for ill, you know what I'm saying? I think if you're going to use them, they should be there. But this, they digested them, so they're not all in this book. I grew up with this. Well, I actually grew up with service book and hymnal. Go ahead, Kathy. You had a question or a comment? I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Did I
There you go.
the right side?
Okay, the Lutheran study. Yes, that's an excellent Bible. Did he invite some of you to get that for this study?
No, me,
Or
because
okay.
I just lost it. Cradle Catholic, but studied the Bible in Ann Arbor with the Methodists in the disciple program. And
Okay.
I've been studying the Bible for quite some time, but the way that you, no, I guess it's Lutherans, okay, not you personally.
Right.
Studying the Bible is different, and it makes me, I've never studied the Psalms. I've studied the Old Testament and the New Testament, but I've never studied the Psalms, and I love music. Okay.
Yes.
So I didn't know how connected the Psalms were to the hymns that
Oh,
you
yes.
sing.
Yes, absolutely. Sometimes when you're in church, and if you look in the hymnal, at the bottom of the hymnal, it has the hymn tune. All right, which is what somebody named. Whenever it says Old 100 or Old 124 or Old 120th, that is the psalm. What they're saying is that's based on that particular psalm. And
Can I
there's
get a copy?
lots of those. Oh, sure. Just come on by the church. We got one for you. No
Okay.
problem. And actually, when we're in the what I want to say, on Wednesday nights, tomorrow night when I'm teaching the class, we actually will we will sing a psalm every time too, just because
Oh,
I
that's
like to do that.
nice.
So yes. So at any rate, so we have and we've tried to sing on here before because I like to sing, but it's just hard. It's just hard with all the different voices. So we sort of got away from that. All right.
Everybody
So
has
yes,
a little bit different delay on their connection, so
exactly.
it,
And so
it's
when
a
try and-
mess.
Well, maybe we can pick one
Exactly.
person, let them run with it.
All right. Well, a couple of those things then we're going to continue to talk about that you've had already. And that is that I think each psalm, there are different psalms that have different characteristics. There are different types. I believe also that every psalm sort of has a mood or a voice to it. So we're going to take a look at some of that. There's a lot of biblical parallelism in the psalms where it echoes back and forth. We're going to take a look at that throughout as well. All right. And then just we'll sort of see each time there's more psalms than we can really cover in the 50 minutes. So I'm going to pick and choose a few things. And then we'll sort of see what you guys want to talk about. I want to look a little more closely tonight, though, at one of the Psalms that's sort of very famous in the church that we had for tonight, and that's Psalm 22. So if you'll turn to Psalm 22.
That for, I think,
Psalm
Good
22.
Friday.
Yes, exactly. I was going to ask, does anybody know what it is that we sing this psalm at the church? And we sing it at the beginning of the Good Friday service, the whole way through. And it's a long psalm, as you can see there. What is there? 31 verses, but those 31 verses are big verses. And so it's a very long psalm. But this is the psalm that we use on the beginning of Good Friday. Now, there's a couple of reasons for that. And it's because a lot of people, when they hear this psalm, they hear the voice of Jesus from the cross. Are you with me?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to take a look at that. And the reason in the church that we use it is we hear the plaintive voice of Jesus from the cross as he's being crucified. So look at the first little bit there. My God, why have you forsaken me? In Hebrew, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. Why have you forsaken me? Why so far from saving me? So far from the words of my groaning? You know, that there Jesus hangs on the cross, but God is not coming to save him. He is going to die there for us. Verse 2, my God, I cry out by day, but you do not answer. By night, I find no rest. Yet, and I just want you to underline that or highlight that in the book. A lot of people only hear the grouching of Jesus in this psalm, but I want to suggest that there's something else going on here too. All right. Why have you forsaken me? Why have you left out there? And then verse 3, yet you are the Holy One, enthroned on the praises of Israel. Our ancestors put their trust in you. They trusted in you and you rescued them. They cried out and were delivered. They trusted in you or put to shame. You see what the psalmist is doing? My God, where are you? Well, I do remember that you saved Israel. But then verse 6, we're back at it again. But as for me, I am a worm and not human, scorned by all and despised by the people. All who see me laugh me to scorn. And we, of course, in our heads, we get the images of the soldiers and the people deriding Jesus up on the cross, right? Okay. Scorned by all, despised by the people. All who see me laugh and scorn, they curl their lips, they shake their heads. Trust in the Lord. Let the Lord deliver. Let God rescue him if God so delights in him. Are you hearing the gospel, right? If you're the Messiah, save yourself. Come on down. And that's a taunt. I mean, sometimes I've seen that cross stitch, that verse 8, but it's a taunt, right? Trust in the Lord. Let the Lord deliver. Let God rescue him if God so delights in him. You see, that's mockery. That's not a faith statement. That's a mockery. Yet, you see that yet again? Okay, keep with me on the yets here. We had a yet up in verse 3. We have a yet here again. All right. Yet you are the one who drew me forth from the womb and kept me safe on my mother's breast. I have been trusted you ever since I was born. You were my God when I was still in my mother's womb. Be not far from me, for trouble is near and there's no one to help me. So he goes from hearing the taunts to maybe thinking God will still be with him. And now we're back at it again. The young bulls encircle me, strong bulls of Bashan surround me. They open their jaws at me like a slashing and roaring a roaring lion. I am poured out like water. All right. What happens when Jesus is pierced in the side in the Gospel of John? What flows out? Water. Yes. I am poured out like water. All my bones are out of joint, right? Crucifixion, breaking of bones. They break the legs, although it is not for Jesus. My heart within my breast is melting wax. My strength is dried up like a potsherd. My tongue sticks to the roof of my mouth. And you have laid me in the dust of death. Packs of dogs close me in. A band of evils surround me. They pierce my hands and my feet. I can count all my bones and stare at me and gloat. They divide my garments. Are you hearing the gospels in here? Right? Among them, for my clothing that's got lost. But here we go again. We have two yets and a but. All right. But you, O Lord, be not far away. O my help, hasten to my aid. Deliver me from the sword, my life from the power of the dog. Save me from the lion's mouth, from the horns of wild bulls you have rescued me. See, one of the things that's interesting to me about this psalm, and this is where I say that I think the psalms have motion and emotion in them. Have you ever felt, even in relationships or with God, like sometimes you feel like you're utterly abandoned, and then all of a sudden you think, well, wait a second, I guess I haven't always been abandoned. But in that moment you think, "Ah," and all of a sudden, oh, that is right, you did do that for me. And it's this back and forth, like we see here in the psalm, right? Here I am, why have you left me? Oh, that's right, you were with me from my mother's womb. You were there when I nursed with my mom. You knew me even in the womb. Yeah, but you're letting these dogs rip me apart. You see, can you hear the back and forth, the wonderful sparring back and forth in the psalm here? Okay. Verse 22, I will declare your name to my people. In the midst of the assembly, I will praise you. So at one point, you've deserted me. Now he's going to praise him. You who fear the Lord, give praise. All you of Jacob's line, give glory. Stand in the awe of the Lord, all you offspring of Israel. For the Lord does not despise nor abhor or hate the poor in their poverty. Neither is the Lord's face hidden from them, but when they cry out, the Lord hears them. From you comes my praise in the great assembly. I will perform my vows on the side of all who fear the Lord. The poor shall eat and be satisfied. Let those who seek the Lord give praise. May your hearts live forever. All the ends of the earth shall remember and turn to the Lord. All the families of nations shall bow before God. For dominion belongs to the Lord who rules over the nations. Indeed, all who sleep in the earth shall bow down and worship, and all who go down to the dust, though they be dead, shall kneel before the Lord. Their descendants shall serve the Lord, and they shall proclaim generations to come. They shall proclaim the God's deliverance to people yet unborn, saying to them, the Lord has acted. So even though we sort of locate this psalm with the death of Christ, the psalmist actually doesn't end up in that same place, right? At first, he doesn't know what to do. Then he gives thanks to God. Then he's not so sure. Then he blesses God. Then he goes back again because, my God, it's just so horrible. But in the end, it's an about face. And he praises God for all the wonderful things that God has done. Now, I'm a pastor of the church, and I'm not asking anybody to do confession here, but it's possible that sometimes in our lives, we don't know where God is. And we're frustrated and we're angry and we can't understand why God left us out there like that. And then all of a sudden, the next day, something else happens like, oh, maybe God hasn't abandoned me after all. Maybe God is still there for me, but I couldn't see it because I was so angry and so hurt or so at a loss that I couldn't see the ways in which God was in my life. Now, I'm going to confess on your behalf. I'm sure I'm the only one who's ever thought that. But there are times in our lives when we're down and everything, it's just one of those days where everything goes wrong and we can't see any of the good. And then sometimes somebody else says, well, wait a second. I mean, you still have a job, don't you? Your family still cares about you. And all of a sudden, we begin to see the other side of things that sometimes can bring us out of that sort of funk. And I think if you think about Psalm 22 here, the psalmist is in a funk, but all of a sudden then he remembers God. And then he gets back in his funk again, and then he remembers. And finally, his last bit of thing is thanking God for all the good that God has done and praising him from every generation. So sometimes in the Psalms, we see that back and forth, which I also think is a lot like our lives. Now, at least my life. I'm sure you're all saintly and perfect and never question God, but sometimes you have those bad days, you're like, right? Like all of us. Okay. Any thoughts on Psalm 22?
Psalm 22. We went right by
Any
Psalm
thoughts?
18.
What's that?
Well, we went right by Psalm 18, and that
Really?
one,
What do you think? What?
I
Yep.
think that one was, well, to me, it was powerful. And then I saw,
It's very powerful,
what-
especially I think of especially those first lines of it. In you, O
yeah,
Lord, my strength, my strong, my crag and my haven, my God, my rock in whom I put my trust, my shield. I mean, that idea that we can call upon God and God is there for us. Yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful psalm. I mean,
and
there's so many of these.
oh, I'm sorry.
Go
What
ahead.
those are the images that I came up with using ChatGPT. But
Uh-huh.
and especially this one. Can you see it?
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Huh? And
It's
the
a
cross,
woman,
you're holding on to the crag. Yeah.
and
Huh?
she,
In the midst of
is
violence.
that good right
Yeah, I
here?
can see it.
Okay.
Oh, that's cool.
The first one I
It
saw,
looks like a, yep.
it's
Yeah.
the man, and I went, well, since I'm a woman, I'll look
It's
for
got
a
long
woman.
hair, so
And like this is like a post-Renaissance. Okay. And then
yeah, picture.
this one where
Okay.
I like that.
Almost looks like Jesus is helping someone out
Oh,
there.
Jesus is
Kind of.
helping somebody from falling into troubled waters. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Right
Okay.
there. Okay.
Like a bridge over troubled waters.
Yeah,
Simon and
well, I
Garfunkel,
don't
right?
think so, but you know what?
My wife loves that song.
I found a hymn, and I don't know if it's in your hymn, but
What
it
is
says
the
it's written by Martin Luther. A mighty fortress is our God.
Oh, yes. Yeah, it's a famous Lutheran hymn. Yes.
And
Yeah.
I even
I've heard
printed
Well,
that
and
once
I
or
think-
twice.
words out because they're so
Yeah.
beautiful. And
Yeah,
it's
and that, of course, go ahead.
no, it's just that, oh gosh, I've had a lot of losses in my life. And
Mhm.
some of the losses produced anger, okay, especially early. My mom died when I was 18. And that started the anger.
Mhm.
I lost my husband 10 years ago. And the only thing that got me through was believing that there was a mighty force in my life. And that's when I was studying the Bible in the disciple program with the Methodists.
And
So,
I think, Kathy, what your experience, I think we all, I mean, if you live long enough, you're going to have
yeah, and
losses.
I'm there.
That's just the way. Yeah, I think we all have. I mean, if you live past 20, you're going to have some losses somewhere. And I think it's hard on all of us. And I think if you're familiar with like the stages of grief and things, one of the first one is very natural is anger, that we're irritated because God would let that happen. But I take refuge in the fact, using the word refuge from the Psalm, that the psalmist felt the same way. My God, why have you forsaken me? Why have you left me out here? And then I said, oh, but you did bring me forth from the womb and saved me. Okay, I'll give you that. But I mean, I think that helps me in a life of faith to know that a life of faith is sometimes troubling, but in the end, always coming back to the fact that God does, in fact, love us, even in the midst of our pain and loss. And God gave up his own son to save us. I mean, talk about a loss, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that even though we can be angry for a time, if we continue to read the Psalter, we can see that eventually there's sort of a change in that attitude, that the God we were mad at and irritated with and couldn't understand where God was to help us, all of a sudden becomes the God who we begin to thank and praise for the gifts we do have, knowing that life isn't perfect and we're not perfect. But in the midst of all that imperfection, we have a God who still loves us and cares about us. And I hear that as I read through the Psalm, I hear that throughout all these kinds of places. And a mighty fortress, which of course you can hear that in Psalm 18, but of course Luther based that, and we'll get to this in a couple of weeks, on Psalm 46, right? Okay, God is my refuge and
Martin
strength,
Luther at the top.
very present help in trouble, right? Psalm 46. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our stronghold. That's what Luther brought. But that notion of God being a crag, a stronghold, that's throughout the Psalter. I mean, it occurs in Psalm 70, Psalm 1. I mean, it's throughout. So we'll find it in lots of places. Luther happened to base that hymn on Psalm 46, but he could have based it on 300 other places, in the Psalter. And of course, it's become a famous
Sure.
Lutheran
Yeah,
sort of hymn.
you hear it over and over. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we do it always on Reformation Sunday coming in October, and Jeremy has a version where he does one of the verses on the organ. It's really fun. So it's a neat thing. Yeah, definitely. Okay. What about the others of you? What was there a particular psalm that jumped out to you this week, or was there a place in the psalm that you want to talk more about? If you look at Psalm 17, verse 8, this is one of my favorite verses in Scripture. It's also used in the service of Compline in the church. Keep me as the apple of your eye. Hide me under the shelter of your wings. I love that. The apple of your eye. I'm sure we use that phrase throughout. Okay. Any things that you want me to go on here?
It
Go ahead.
ends with confidence. It ends with
Go
confidence.
ahead.
Don't you think?
Yes, exactly.
And sometimes it's very difficult to see at first, but he is always there.
Yeah. The one thing that is maybe a little bit difficult for us today, but because of where we live, there's often in the psalm, and we see it. I mean, it occurs throughout, but you can see it. Oh, in Psalm 21, for instance, there's often a lot of what I call royal attestation. All right, where God is referred to as the king. All right, and we use words like crown and honor and royalty and royalness. You know what I mean? And of course, one of the reasons is that people in that day were very familiar with kings and queens. And of course, these kings and queens also exerted power in their lives for good or for ill. I think most of us today have never experienced the power of a king. I mean, we follow, the kings, we follow the royals in Britain because we sort of think it's fun, but it's really sort of an interest piece, like we watch Downton Abbey or something. But those people don't, those people don't have power in our lives. But when the psalmist is saying, like if you look at Psalm 21 for a second, these are real things that they would have thought about. The king rejoices in your strength, O Lord, how greatly he exalts in your victory. What I'm pointing out there is that kings thought they were top dogs. But here the psalmist is even though the psalmist talks about God as king often, here you can see the king is lower than the Lord. You with me? Okay. So wherever we see that, we can see the way in which the psalmist is trying to say, yes, we understand kings and kings' power. We understand when God has that kind of power, but the final power does not reside with the kings of this world, but rather resolves with God. All right. One of the other just quick things as we're looking through the Psalms here, if you look in, just to sort of show you here, if you look in Psalm 20, verse 1, may the Lord, you see Lord there. What do you notice about the word Lord there?
Oh,
It occurs in verse 1, in verse 3, in verse 5, in verse 6, in verse 7, in verse 9. What do you notice about the word Lord there?
All caps.
In all caps. What does that mean when you see that in the Bible? Anybody? It means something very definite. So whenever you see the Lord, Lord, in all caps, that's the name for God. The Hebrew would put there YHWH for Yahweh, YHWH, but they would not say it. When they get to that word, they're not allowed to say the name of God. So if they were reading the Hebrew, when they got to that word, they would say Adonai, which means the Lord. But in our text, whenever you see what's called the tetragrammaton, the 4-letter word for God, the word behind that is the word Yahweh, which is the name for God. So you see it there throughout chapter 20, just to show you. If you look in Psalm 21, you see it again in verse 1, you see it again in verse 7, you see it in verse 9. Anytime that we see that Lord, all caps, that's Adonai or Yahweh. It's the name of God behind that. It's identifying who their God is. The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God who raised Jesus from the dead. Yahweh is the name. They're not allowed to say that because it's blasphemy to say the name of God for Hebrew people. So they never point this either. In the Hebrew text, let me show you real quick. Let me grab my Hebrew Bible. I know this is going to be difficult to make out, but do you see the Hebrew text here?
Yeah.
All right. And like Japanese and other languages, they're reading from right to left, not left. Yes, they're reading from right to left this way as opposed to the way we read. But the thing that I want to point out is if you look closely, I don't know if you can see it on my screen, below every one of those letters, there's a dot or sometimes a T. All right. So the point here is that it's sort of a strange thing. In the original Hebrew, it was read out loud. So the way that you learned the Hebrew, all of the Hebrew, was by reading it to one another out loud. And there were no vowels. The vowels were taught by learning it. I read it to you, you know what it says. It was all consonants. All right. That's why the YHWH is all consonants. You with me? In the year 500, around 500, there was a group called the Masoretes who developed what they now use in Hebrew called the Masoretic text. And what the Masoretes did was to go in and point these different things so that people would know, is that an A or an E or an I or a U? What is that sound in between those letters? So they went through the entire Bible and they put these little points so they would know what to do. They did that for every word in the Bible except the word for Yahweh. They would not touch that one because that's the name for God. So for that one, they left it as it was. And when you got to it, you were to say Adonai, which means the Lord. You with me on what was going on? Now, I also just want to point out, does everybody understand there were no vowels? The vowels were put in much later. But what happens whenever this is done, and I was talking to Craig earlier about translations with the Septuagint, whenever you do this, you risk interpretation. If you have the letters L, V, and R, you with me? L, V, and R, is that liver, lover, lever? Do you see what I'm saying? It can be different things. Now, because you were read to it, you learned what that word was. But there may have been some you weren't sure of, and so they would put something else in. And that's what we had happen sometimes as well. So the original Hebrew text, the most authentic, is consonantal, only consonants. The vowels were put in at a later date, except for what's called the tetragrammaton, the 4 letters, YHWH. The way we represent that in our Bible is by the capital LORD. Am I really messing with you here? Are you guys understanding what I'm saying? You're getting this?
No.
It is deep. But one of the things that you'll know now is that when you come to this in the Bible, and it's true for your Bibles and it's true in our hymnal, whenever you see the word Lord, you'll know that's the Hebrew name for God. It does not mean Lord like Lord and Lady. Do you see the difference?
Oh, yeah.
It means the Lord, as in Yahweh, Jehovah, Adonai, the big wig. That's the name for God. It's not just a Lord and Lady, not small case L, it's big, Lord. Okay? That's the Hebrew name for God. And we'll see it throughout the Psalms. Okay?
Hmm.
All right. Any other questions for today?
No.
Okay. All right. Here's a little piece of homework for next week, just because it's so famous. All right. I want you to think about or find what's your favorite translation of Psalm 23.
Hmm.
There's a lot of them. All right. Because that's the first psalm we have for next week, is probably the most famous psalm, right?
The Lord is
I
my
know it in about what's that?
The Lord is my shepherd. Is that
Exactly. I shall not win. Yes. Yahweh es mi pastor, nada me falta. Okay, in Spanish, I lack nothing, nada me falta. Isn't that beautiful? Nada me falta. I lack nothing. All right. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not be in want. All right. Okay. So we're going to take a look at that. And what I want you to think about is, what's your favorite translation of that part of the psalm? Because, there's lots of variations. There's that wonderful part of, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you're with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Well, what does that really mean in the Hebrew? We're going to take a look at that.
What do
It's
you
just a beautiful, beautiful psalm. It's been put to music all over the place. So your homework assignment is to think about Psalm 23 and what's your favorite song or translation of that psalm. Kathy?
I don't understand. Okay. Look for my favorite translation.
So you can find Psalm 23 in cross stitch. You can find it in greeting cards. You can find it in 100 different places. All right. Do you have, it's okay. Do you have a favorite translation of Psalm 23? Okay. Okay.
You always get it when you go to a funeral on those little
A lot of
cards.
times. There's a wonderful, if you look through the hymnal, the King of Love, my shepherd is. Okay. Obviously, that's based on Psalm 23. There's lots of them, right? My shepherd is the Lord, right? There's lots of them. So if you have a favorite translation, we'll share that a little bit and maybe talk about why that particular, psalm is interesting to you. We've changed it around a little bit, just in a little bit of a preview. We have, we're used to say, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, and you'll notice in the NRSV, it's the darkest valley rather than the shadow of death. Except I think most of us are familiar with that version of it, are we not?
Yeah.
So at any rate, so we'll take a look. All right. Well, good having you all tonight. A little homework, not a lot for next week, but next time we're together, we're doing Psalm 23, that famous psalm, through Psalm 34. Okay. And I think you all have the schedule, yes, or a
Yeah.
schedule. If not, it's on the website too. So, all right. Well, blessings to all of you, and we will see you soon.
Welcome
Thank you,
back.
Pastor John.
You're welcome. Blessings.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, Peter.
Bye-bye.
Oh, he doesn't. He's on mute.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get in touch with Samantha. You're in the choir, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
She's not a member,
None
so
of
she's
them.
not in our directory.
Anybody know how to get
But
in
if
touch
you,
with Samantha? She
yeah,
has a
why don't you,
business
if you email Jeremy, he can share it with you. I think
Jeremy.
Jeremy Bankson, who's our director of music.
I will. Okay, I have his email.
Okay.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay,
All righty.
very good.
Good
Great.
night.
Blessings.